Liz Store. Treasurer Jim Chalmers has written in The Australian today, pledging to tackle budget repair. This makes me a little bit nervous because I kind of feel like it's not going to be about we're going to cut spending or we're going to reform things, but they're going to figure out ways to screw us. And they're talking about all these different things hitting the budget's bottom line and talking a bit about NDIS and this and the other thing. But what do you make of the Treasurer's promise? And what is going to happen to those Stage 3 tax cuts that they, with gritted teeth, took to the election and said,
they swore to us.
Yeah, no, you'll still get them.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Much like the $275 that they didn't turn around and were like, well, actually, on second thought. Look, he hasn't even mentioned the Stage 3 tax cuts in this entire spiel that was written in The Australian here. So I think that answers the question for us in terms of I wouldn't get my hopes up. And meanwhile, they're very busy making up other ways to squander a lot of our money. We've got these coal caps. They still won't tell us how much they spent on the repatriation of these ISIS brides, as well as the surveillance that they promised would happen following that, and for how many years, we don't know. These guys seem to be very good at making up new ways to spend it and absolutely have no idea how to crack down on spending.
And a question without notice on this with those tax cuts in the Stage 3. It occurs to me that one of the big places where people would have been counting on those Stage 3 tax cuts would be a lot of those electorates that voted Teal. Do you reckon there's going to be some buyer's remorse in some of these suburbs?
I think so, and there should be. There should already be. We saw the article come out today about Teal's divided on these caps on coal prices, etc., and so on. How can they be divided, firstly, because they're supposed to be independent? It's not a party. Point, so these independents are now divided on it, sending very mixed signals, although others making very, very good points in saying, sure, this is supposed to bring energy prices down. The government said they're going to increase by 67%. This is supposed to bring them down to an increase of 43%. But of course, our taxes will just go up to pay for it regardless. So it's ridiculous.
How wonderfully generous of them. Now, I want to shift gears now and talk about this migration report that I spoke about at the start of the program. And now the BCA, the Business Council of Australia, wants to keep ratcheting up our migration in line with the population. So it's sort of like the compound interest of migration. I reckon that this is a fool's errand because unless you're getting productivity out of it, just city building isn't going to give you that. What is your take on this? And should we be boosting migration or should we be doing more to build our population locally and, crucially, educate them properly?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. There's a couple of problems with this. The first one is that we have a birth rate which is not sustaining the population. So I think the government's first priority, rather than just bringing in more people, should be to create conditions where couples want to have children and can afford to have children. That should be the priority. Second of all, it seems unwise to bring a lot of foreigners into the country when we ourselves are debating what does it mean to be Australian. We can't even agree on our national holiday or the flag, let alone what it means to be Australian. So when you bring people from overseas, you want them to become Australians with us. It's a difficult time when we can't even agree amongst ourselves. And third, if we're worried about a skills shortage, we've got a lot of very skilled people in a bloated public service who could be moved into private enterprise. That, to me, would solve some of the problem rather than just this ratcheting up of immigration, which, by the way, Australian people have never really been asked to vote upon. It just keeps happening regardless of public opinion.
I love the culture clash image of getting my head of taking all these public servants and then dropping them in the private sector. I think there'd be like a really funny buddy comedy or something you could do.
That's a reality TV show I would watch.
That it would be like, Parks and Recreation, but, times 10.